So we're gonna be talking about Terra Invicta. Other games are fine too.
Cool.
Um, is there anything else I need to do? Do I need anything in front of me? Did I have notes? I don't have notes for this. I have notes for that other terrible game that we will talk about, but not today.
Which one?
Uh, Star Ocean: The Last Hope.
Oh, still. Oh,
That
still.
was the whole
Okay.
point of this
That's still,
podcast.
yeah. Okay. I can't wait to hear about it. You're gonna have the full report of?
Yes, but we have to talk about
Okay.
like a good game first.
All right. Sure. Yeah. We're not gonna start off with Star Ocean.
No, we got to start with a good
That's fine.
game.
That's great with me. That's yeah. I'm
The
I'm I'm
roguelike
into it.
episode might actually happen before. Man, the Star Ocean one is just such a. All right, let's go live. All right, this is Iggy Talks Too Much, episode 4. We kind of just did episode 3. They might be posted together. I don't know, but this is Iggy Talks Too Much about Terra Invicta and games. We got Koya DK. Is that Prika? Who's with you here?
Prika
Oh, I thought you
is
had a cat. It was just your beard.
because of the way my hands were. I was holding
Yes,
a
it
fuzzy
looked like
animal.
you had a fuzzy animal. It looked like you had
this
an
is
animal with you.
this is part of my body.
I
This is not an animal.
but yeah, welcome in. It's koyadk.tv. It's a soap man. CUYADK.tv. It should be in the description of the podcast. So welcome to the show. Anything else you want to promote or say as we start
Oh,
here?
that's it. Yeah, buy some soap from me at koyadk.tv. Thank you so much for having me here, Iggy, and thank you anyone for listening to this.
All right. So, you apparently I've sold you on Terra Invicta,
Yeah,
and
that's on my wish list. I want to check it out.
I guess you because you wanted to know more about the game, and I was like playing it, or so you like
Yes.
watched a video.
I did
So
watch a video.
what
I
was
watched a
your
review.
in the review? Like many of the reviews I've seen for this game, or at least on some level. Well, they didn't say the game was bad. I think for the one that you watched, but
No.
I've heard like various reviews that I saw for the game really like tried to like say it was bad in some way, and I'm like, wait a second, like I guess I have to I had this game on my wish list for a very long time, and I was waiting for it to come out for a long time. And when I heard some of the reviews that were like, well, it's got all these problems and it's really frustrating to roll and like not get anything done, and I'm like, these are people that don't know how to play grand strategy games, and
Right.
the reviewing people, I guess, just want more Dark Souls? Question mark. I don't know what review people want, but that's what this podcast is about. Is Iggy is going to talk too much and is going to tell you what games you actually should be playing and what games that Steam's algorithms or whatever are never going to promote enough to you because it thinks it wants all the AAA stuff. It wants wants you to play more Dark Souls and all the indie spin-offs of Dark Souls and all these games that are, I'm sure, all fine. You may enjoy them, but these are Iggy style games, and those are the kind of games you're going to be talking about here, or games that I didn't like, or I did like, but just games that you play and like.
Uh,
So, anywho,
it sounds like we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about,
that
and
is
that's okay with
exactly
me.
the point of this
Yeah.
podcast,
That's a great place to start.
and because there's not enough out there that talks about games like this. Like no
Right.
one's going to do a podcast about Shadow Empire and why it probably is the best 4X made of all time, and you've never heard of it. No one knows of it.
No.
So, but that's not this episode. We're talking about Terra Invicta today, which is an awesome game. So, what did you get from like the video that you watched, and what do you understand about the game? And we'll dig into it from there.
Well, what I understand about it is that this might not be entirely correct, but that there are two very separate phases of the game, and one mostly takes place terrestrially. It is Earth, right? It's
Yeah,
our
Earth is a
Earth. There's Europe is
primary
there,
crux of the game.
right?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So there's the land battles and the land politicking that takes place on Earth is very separate from the sort of outer space management or the
yeah,
solar system management that takes place almost halfway through the game. You begin entering the solar system management
yeah.
phase. That's what I
So
got from the review.
yeah. So the trick here is that there's you probably have never heard of these. This is the other thing that's gonna happen on this podcast. I want to mention games that had concepts that no one ever thinks of, and because one thing that people
Right.
what did you hear that people were comparing Terra Invicta to? because I know
Oh,
exactly.
yeah,
It's
Stellaris.
not Stellaris. It's not even close, and
Oh,
it's
not
way
from
more.
what I just described is not like
Exactly,
Stellaris.
and it's
But that's what
way
people
more
said. The
complex.
first thing, because they saw a picture of a solar
They
system.
saw a solar system, which isn't even how Stellaris works. They work on the jet streams, the star lanes, or like a
Yeah. The
Master
star
of
lanes.
Orion type game.
Hmm.
And Stellaris is very centric on. I mean, the equations are very basic for how things work. In fact, one of the key things that's different for Terra Invicta, in fact, I'm going to compare this to some old games in a second, but it uses Newtonian physics. You actually have to calculate and build ships that use delta V as well as
Okay.
millig's to be able to accelerate ships quickly throughout the lower atmospheres of planets and stuff. Like there's different orbits you can put stuff in, and the more gravity that's involved, you need
Oh,
more. If you want to move quickly, there's a difference between getting somewhere efficiently and getting somewhere quickly. And so you actually have to design different types of ships to handle different types of jobs. None of that exists in Stellaris. It's just it's this far away, and here's a star lane that takes this long. And I think you can go
yep.
against star lanes, and it takes even longer, which is other. That's how a lot of 4X in space or grand strategy, which I'm going to pretty be interchangeably because I don't really think grand strategy has a big definition. Like there is a
Okay.
4X. I mean, like Civ is a 4X and it's not grand strategy. Grand strategy to me usually have multiple layers on it, like this game does. So I guess it counts as grand strategy. At any
Is it
rate,
both? Is Terra Invictus both?
I mean, you are expanding, you are trying to exterminate something, but your goals are different. Like you're not really going to get. I guess you would get to the point. I don't know. I suppose it fits under
It's grand
4X.
strategy, it
That
sounds like to
that's
me.
not something I'm exactly ready to just pin out. But
Sure.
if I had to pick one, it'd be grand strategy. And like if you play it, it's gonna feel a little bit like a 4X,
Right.
depending on what your experiences are with 4Xs that may have been rightly or wrongly mislabeled.
Stellaris.
So the other game that Terra Victor really gets compared a lot to is XCOM. This game is
Yes.
nothing like the old XCOMs, and it's
And
not
that would
really
be the
anything like
land.
the new XCOMs. The fact that there is a globe when you hit game start does not mean that it's XCOM. And that the fact that there's aliens and there's a globe that spins, that does
So
not make it XCOM.
some people who were going to review this saw the globe first, and some
They
people
never
saw
played
the
the damn
solar
game!
system.
That's the
And
problem. These
they're
reviewers didn't
like, oh,
play the
I know what
game.
this is.
And
Yeah.
that's why this review. So, what I felt this game is a lot like, and we'll dig into more of the details, but the there's an old game called Alien Legacy, and in that
Okay.
game you start you're in some other solar system, but you start on a planet, and the object is the aliens are on the periphery of the solar system. You have to basically 4x your way out from where you start, and the object is to basically extract the resources, get people, build ships, fight them, and win. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm not getting all details, but like that stuff happens in that game. It's also Terra Invicta. The trick to this game that really gives it that like we're not playing just a Civ style game or something. You take over stuff and then you mine those resources and you build stuff and you win. Is that it's also like an older game called Shadow President. There's other games like this, but Shadow President is a game where you basically are puppeting governments, and I think the plot of that game was Cold War era. But basically, you're
Okay.
puppeting. You are not in the key part, and why I compare it to this game is that you are not in direct control of the resources you need to do what you want to do. You
Right.
are basically puppeteering things to give you in Terra Invicta. You're puppeting things to give you money as well as whatever you want to accomplish. It's accomplished through these entities. You don't actually control them at no point in the game. They
Are
can
these orgs?
no, the orgs you actually own.
Okay.
This
Okay.
but the
Are these governments
the
you're talking
indirect
about,
control will be
or
taking over the world's governments. Yeah, which you
right?
siphon
Okay.
for influence, armies, everything you need to get into
Sure.
space
Yeah.
is like that. So let's we jump into a game, and the game has a tutorial where you play the resistance, but it's actually really cool in that they're going to add additional, like right now it starts like today. So like the Ukraine Russia war, like it has the basic
Oh.
geopolitical of where we are right now. But they're
Mhm.
going to release additional scenarios like Cold War era, like different eras, future era.
Okay.
So you can
Sure.
play a few different ways the game starts because you can change certain things about the way the world works. But for the most part, like Russia in some way is going to exist. The U.S. in some way is going to exist. They get taken over, but like these entities, like they can become independent and stuff like that, and it kind of falls back to if it all comes terribly apart. Um, You can unify, but basically the U.S. doesn't have claims on Mexico until you research something that allows you to do that. So if you're familiar with the,
Oh, yep.
is that Europa Universalis? This is where grand strategy comes in. Is that this company has a thing called claims. Claim meaning that whenever you take over something, it
Yeah.
doesn't stay an independent entity anymore. If it has a claim and you war like your European Union and you take over Germany or Italy or something, it becomes absorbed into that entity as opposed to being
Right.
separate when you take it over. But yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah.
So your primary role at the start phase of the game is you have councilmen, you have agents, and these agents all have different types of abilities, and you have turns. Each turn, so like the time is always going in the game when you get to spaceships and other stuff happening. But the key thing is that at the beginning of the game, like every week, and later on it's every 2 weeks, you get to basically set an order for all your council people to do. So what can they do? Well, they can basically try to build public support in nations. They can take over control points in nations, which is how you get money, research, and the needed boost to like just put satellites in orbit and start mining places for space resources.
Sure.
But that's their goal at the beginning of the game. There's different types of them. Like there's tech moguls, there's spies, all the different types of like people you think would be like, all the archetypes are there, and they have a whole bunch of different sets of abilities. So it's basically a die roll system. And if the defense of whatever you're trying to do, like so you're trying to raise public support in the European Union has a defense of 7 just based on how big their GDP is and how much pop they have. And your
Sure.
thing has a 7 in persuasion, which is one of the abilities. And with no other modifiers, you have a 50-50 chance at producing an increase in public opinion for your faction, and this makes
Okay.
it easier to do stuff in that particular nation. And there's like 20
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
30 different abilities that they can do. They can do everything from control nation is one of the critical ones at the start, which just takes over control points. The every single nation has the top control point, that's the executive branch, which lets you then set policies like declaring wars, declaring peace, making federations, granting independence, that kind of stuff. They also can increase unrest in nations. They can cause revolts. You can also
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
stabilize
yeah.
them. They can go into hiding because you can do actions on other council members, which like other teams, other factions, councilmen. You can detain them, you can investigate them, you can steal their organizations. There's basically a pool of organizations you can purchase, and based on an administration score of each of your council members, they can basically take all the organizations have 1, 2, or 3 stars. 3 stars have more
Okay.
abilities, but they can do everything from boosting research to boosting the abilities of the council people, increasing your income, um, adding additional stats to them, giving you like more resources. Like it can be boost, like if you get CERN or something, of course you get like you
Sure.
get certain
Yeah,
boost
you
in
get
research,
research
and
boosts.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you get like
yeah.
additional rocketry stuff. So yeah, so there's all kinds of different things you can do, and that's basically the primary way that you interact on the Earth level. Is they're your agents that interact with both your opponents. You can even assassinate enemy leaders, and the other AIs get really pissed.
Ooh.
Like if you when you take actions against
Good.
their control points and their people, they get mad really quickly with you.
People hate it when you assassinate
Um,
their
you can
leaders.
even trade with the other groups too, because the way the research works, it's possible that they get access to a piece of research that just by chance you don't get, or just research that
Right.
they don't get, and that's
Is it
a
almost do you almost have a roulette? Do you draw like 3 cards that are going to be the researches that are
the
available to you and you
research in
pick
this
one to
game.
research?
The research is super interesting, and I actually really
Okay.
like it. It reminds me a little
And
bit
I don't
of
mean to get you off track.
no, it's good. I'm just kind of going over all
Okay.
the basics of the game just
Sure.
to give people an understanding of just how much depth there is to each thing, and then you have to think about all of these things are interacting with each other. So your priorities change in the game. So like once you take over the US and get a whole bucket load of research, well, every faction has a different goal, and that's where this game is really unique. As unlike Civ,
Oh,
where
right. Yeah, yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
trying
I
to take
forgot
each
about
other
this.
out.
Yeah.
So we have the alien threat on the end of the universe. Well, the faction that the game kind of guides you to the tutorial to play is the XCOM faction. The reason they're not even
Right. The
really
guy,
XCOM, because
yeah, the
XCOM
resistance.
is
Yeah.
exterminate the aliens. That's
Yeah.
they don't screw everything else. The resistance is we really don't want to just kill all the aliens. That's not really our goal, and that's where again where it's not like XCOM. Our goal is to remove the alien threat. They can still exist, just not here.
Yeah.
So yeah. So every single faction has their, or there's 7 factions. I keep saying 8. I think there's 7. Um, each one has their own goal, and they're all co-aligned in different ways. So some of them are going to be more friendly to you. Like there's one called Humanity First, which I believe their goal is to just exterminate all the aliens, screw all of them, and they need to go. And then
Okay.
you have Project Exodus, whose goal is to, we're just going to fly away. You can have Earth, see ya.
Peace out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you have
See ya.
the Academy, whose job it is, and keep in mind, like everyone is trying to compete, taking over stuff on Earth and
Yeah.
infighting with each other, while the aliens are coming, and they're all trying to either appease or take care of the alien threat as well. The Academy says we want to prove that we're super intellectual and we can be equals with the aliens. And then I forget what which one this is. The eyeball one, the Protectorate. Oh, the initiative, the protectorates. The initiative wants to. They're basically like the people that want to exploit. They want to gain power through the aliens. So like they're exploiting the aliens coming, and they want to become more powerful because of them. So they're kind of
Okay.
in the
Oh yeah.
middle.
Okay.
And then you have the two that are really on the alien side, the Protectorate and the Servants. The Protectorates want to protect humanity by appeasing the aliens. So that it's some kind of weird peaceful coexistence, but like
Yeah.
but they're gonna help the aliens. The Servants
Mhm.
are basically the hand of the aliens because their goal is to support the aliens by any means necessary. Now, I didn't tell
Yeah.
you how. Go ahead.
Well, it occurs to me that we're not entirely sure what the goals of the aliens are.
Exactly. Which
Because one of
it
these guys might be right, but we don't know.
Right. It becomes apparent that the aliens want to come, without exploring too much of the game. They're going to
Sure.
come and they're going to start taking over stuff. And depending on your role, you're either helping them or trying to harm them. And yes, they will actually come
Sure.
down on Earth and change the geopolitical structure if that happens. And so
Sure.
the servants are basically their right hand man to
Yeah.
make that happen. And the protector, it's certainly not going to get in their way. So if you're playing the resistance, those are two factions that you're probably going to at some point reach a war status with. So
Right.
okay, so you have all that going on. And keep in mind, none of these factions have unlocked, and this is kind of the cool thing to figure out in the game. None of them have their actual victory goals unlocked at the beginning of the game. In fact, no one can win until you get your victory. I wouldn't be surprised, sort of like how Stellaris has like different ends to the game. I don't know
Sure.
how the game ends. I've not finished a full
Yeah.
game. It's a really really long game to play through, and
I
a
gotta grab this
lot of
game. I'm
things
gonna grab this
a
one.
lot of things happen. Like you build up your council people to have higher stats, which lets them like throw coups whenever they want, and like they become very powerful. They can also go to space and steal habitats from other people or protect them. There's a lot of different things that they also be assaulting alien growth on the Earth because they're trying to like terraform the Earth in some way. So you can
Right.
guard against that or not guard against that. Fight the people trying to fight them. But yeah, so on Earth you have like a handful of different resources because you think, well, I could just take over the whole Earth with controlling points. Not quite so. So you have cash.
It's never as easy as that.
You have cash, which is basically spent to buy organizations, pay off people. It's a cash resource. So anything you think that would help
Yeah.
money influencing things, and many things require upkeep that costs money.
Sure.
Influence, as you get more public opinion, and some of your council people get it. Influence is basically
Mhm.
just how much you want to go convince somebody to control the nation, or you want to anything that's basically convincing someone or using influence. That would be that you'd spend points to do that, and also the more control points you have over the control point cap, it costs you influence points per turn. That's where you're not
Sure.
allowed to take over the whole world. Is every single
Right,
point.
exactly, because you can't, yeah.
Yeah, based on the GDP and what point you take over, it takes up so much of your control point cap. And once you go over the
Yeah.
cap, the same goes for mission control, which has to do with having stuff in space. Anytime you go over the cap, it makes it a lot easier. There's heavy penalties to the die rolls. And this was something that the
Yeah.
reviewer people really complained about, and people that I like, they didn't really read the instructions. Whenever you
They
go
didn't
to
understand,
Yeah, so like when you go to control a nation and you try to take over a control point,
they didn't understand encumbrance.
there's a little slider that you can use to basically for that particular roll check to give you bonus points on the roll. So once your stats are much higher than what you're checking up against, the
Oh,
defense tactic,
yeah.
you can basically make it like 99% that you're going to win.
Right.
So it's like part of the game is picking things that have a really high likelihood of happening and setting your people up, because you can actually assign experience points to them to mold them into the type of character you want them to, what role you want them to do. Like having somebody with a big megaphone that can take out, can try to take over China or something when others can't, because it requires a pretty high barrier to get past their geopolitical structure. Because one way to talk about it is every single nation has their own GDP. They have their population, they have their knowledge, they have their unity score, they have their unrest score, they have an inequality score. And one of the things we didn't talk about was, so whenever you take over something and your agents, you take over a point, um, every you each control point you take over controls so many influence points, investment points, and there's a whole bunch of different things you basically choose how you want to assign those investment points that are produced per month. So you can invest in, and this happens in the nation. Remember, you're kind of sucking off of points from them. You're like what they produce, like research, money, boost. Boost helps you get into space, all that kind of stuff. So you can invest in the economy, welfare, knowledge, unity, military, spoils, funding boost, mission control, armies, navies, nuclear weapons. And some
Hey,
nations don't have a space program, so the first thing
sure.
you have to do before you can build additional boost is its space program instead of boost. And every nation kind of
Right.
has its own little thing. Like, so their military has a rating. So if you invest in military, it makes their armies better. You build more armies and navies, you can move them around more easily. You get more of them. If you grow the economy, their GDP gets larger, and eventually they grow more control points, as well as they with more investment points per month. And the amount of unrest
Sure.
they have affects how many investment points you get. And eventually, if it gets way too high, you don't get any investment points, and the country might flip on you. But that's where you get all these Earth resources from. So we talked about money and influence. Money, funding, and spoils give you money from the, you're basically sucking money from the governments, just like kind of like you would in XCOM, but
Yeah.
in a different format. But like that's the primary vector of getting money in XCOM is monthly wages. So the other stuff is, you have the other resources on Earth are ops. So like any small, like going to fight alien flora fauna, you can boost it with the ops resource, and like investigating aliens. Like think about like all the subterfuge type stuff. Those require ops, and it's
Okay.
actually a
Yeah.
harder. You can't get that from
Sneaky
countries.
apps.
Some organizations can generate ops, and as the game goes on, you might have a few ways to generate ops, but it's generally something you don't get a lot of. Boost. So there's a whole bunch of space resources we'll talk about, but boost is how you take stuff on Earth and put it into space. One of the problems
Yeah.
you run into in the game is that the further you want to go out, well, Earth is the origination of where your stuff comes from. It starts to require a lot more boost to get further and further out from Earth, as well as take years of time. Like this time frame in this game is very very long. It's not
Yeah.
like it's going to take 500 turns and the game's over like Civ or something. The game starts in 2022 or 2023 and goes, like, it's probably about 10 years before you're building up for stuff to happen, and it's been 10 years and now it's time to actually, the game really, like, the game changes. You're playing almost different, not different games, but like the game levels happen. We were on Earth, now we go to
Yeah. Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
now we're fighting aliens, now the aliens are in, on the land. And every few years the game sort of changes in how much complexity and how all these things are blending together. So boost is the way basically to the skies and unlocks the next stage of the game. And one of the key tactics at the beginning of the game is getting countries that can give you boost, so that you can do
Sure.
that. Mission control is how much stuff you can have in space. Every time you build stuff, it uses up that capability. And if you go over it, it's really easy for people to do subterfuge on your stuff. Research.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about research, but you just get research points per day. And then of course the control cap stuff. If you're over the cap, you can go over the cap as much as you want, but the more you go over the cap, the more negative influence it costs per turn to keep that up, as well as people can more easily crack down and take over the control points that you have. It's a lot harder to defend them. Space resources, really quickly, you have water. I think you have, it's like some kind of fire. What is it? Volatiles. You have the base metals. You have precious metals, noble metals, and you have fissiles. And essentially, you need a little bit of everything to build stuff in space. And obviously, the more rare things. Every planet and the moon and every asteroid, you can basically send probes to and eventually build mining units on it. And in each game it's actually different. Like, so the moon of course is not necessarily going to have a lot of water, but it does vary between games. So like there might be some really good spots in different games that are it like the moon may not have a lot of water, but in one game it might actually have a decent amount of water to make it really worth taking that spot. Um, and once you're in space with those resources, you can build stuff in space a lot faster. And the game assumes that everything that's in space is available all the way out from Pluto, all the way out to Mercury. The key thing is you're not sending up boost from Earth to cover lack of resources, because you can run into a
Right.
deficit because water
Yeah.
is used on all your habitats, and the more people you have in space, the more it's all about managing upkeeps in this game a lot. I think that's where people get the grand
It sounds
strategy
like it. Yeah,
vibe.
a lot of it sounds like not going over
The
your
quota,
budget.
yeah.
Yeah, your
Yeah, there are
your
actual,
encumbrance.
like the council people are a little bit unique. Like one of them actually has a penalty. If you go in negative money, their loyalty drops significantly.
Ooh,
Um, so we
like some money.
so like we talked about all these different layers. So every faction has their own goals in mind. There is a massive, massive research tree, and there's actually a place online you can go see it. But there's actually two research trees to the game. One of them is,
Okay.
so you go to the research screen and there's three cards. At the top are basically world research. Anyone at the beginning of the game, three of them are chosen. I don't know if they're random or not, but there's basically three things at the beginning. Whoever contributes the most research to completing it, when it completes, is offered to choose what the next research card is. And these are things like rival
Oh.
economics, or yeah, exactly. It's like, wow, that's kind of cool. So
Oh. Choose it from the whole deck or from a choice of
well, it's from a
random.
tree. So you
Okay.
basically
Oh, okay,
every
okay.
faction might have a different goal for where they want to get down the tree, and it's a very big tree.
Yeah.
So can be having enough research, because keep in mind, like if you want, you can't, like at certain points in the game, you might be able to dominate all three research cards. But later on in the game, when everyone has a lot of research coming in, you may not be able to dominate all three cards, or you have to decide, well, yeah, I want this stuff done, but I also want to have control of where we go next. So I want to always at least keep one of them under my control so I can put a percentage of my research in that. And you can choose how you want to divvy your stuff up. The key thing, though, is that none of those research things actually get you anything. This They unlock sub projects, which are the things that you personally have unlocked. So that'll be like stuff to build ships, stuff to go build settlements, stuff that makes your council people more effective on Earth. Batteries for your ships, drivers for your ships, guns for your ships, other habitats, ways that countries can better resist the aliens. Like all those little bonuses are researched in your bottom set of cards, which goes up to three. But at the beginning of the game, I think you only get one or two, and it'll tell you what you have to do to unlock the others. But at the end of the game, you can have up to three things being researched for your own faction and for people that you control, and three are still universal. So I thought that was pretty cool because, well, yeah, I want to get my stuff done, but I also like if you're focusing on your own projects, you're letting the AIs and your opponents
Yeah.
direct where research goes. Now, of course, at the beginning of the, I'm not opening my blinds yet, but you're getting what you want. I might
This
actually
is
be
the
a damn
game
thing.
review.
We're talking about Terra Invicta, how much it's a wonderful game. It's been reviewed very well. I'm sure there's some good reviews out there, but the ones that I saw were like they didn't either play the game. Like if you listen to this, there's so much going on in this game, and we haven't even talked about space yet. Like
No.
so say you unlock all the space stuff. Well, when you zoom out of Earth, there's 9 different orbits around Earth. And one of the key features of this game is there's something called an interface orbit for any entity. You can even start building colonies on other planets and getting various bonuses over them. So anything in an interface orbit, there's all these different modules you can build on stations that give bonuses to military, bonuses to economic production, and all this kind of stuff. And those are highly sought after because there aren't that many. There's even debris in the orbits. So like if something gets blown up
Oh, yeah.
or some country decides to do missile tests, it all you have to now have to worry about having like point defense on all your stuff because otherwise rocks come by and destroy all of it, which causes more stuff to end up in orbit. So I can only imagine when you get to the super late game and there's ships blowing up everywhere that all these orbits become very difficult. Like you need to
A
have a lot of
mess.
defenses and try to prevent everything from becoming catastrophes. And there's also orbits. There's orbits all over the place. This is where the Newtonian stuff comes in. Is there's even the Lagrange points between different orbits that you can use to build stations that are basically like refueling, build ships so that they're
Yeah.
already out of a lot of gravity. And it's really really cool. Like you can just zoom out and you just see all of our solar system. And but yeah, so one of the key things is where's water? Mars. So one of the big races of the game is as all this stuff kind of sequentially opens up as research allows and as getting better ships allows. Getting to Mars is a really big deal, but it also takes a really long time. So you have to start making all these really long term plans to do stuff. And unlike the shadow president level of what's happening on Earth, in space, you have full autonomy. You can decide how you want to build stuff. All the upkeeps and benefits go directly to you, and you can direct to build exactly what ships you want. You can direct, you can expand or do whatever you want with your different settlements as well. It's unlike Earth. There's no control points or anything. It's just all your stuff. Um,
So once you leave Earth, it's mainly the factions that are in control, and you're no longer trying to
yeah,
convince
there's
the
no world
nations to
governments to
build your
mess with.
rockets for
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
now your people are in space.
Yeah, the only stuff that can really mess with your stuff is accidents. I was the aliens showing up and blowing it up if you can't defend it, or other
Mhm.
factions trying to send council people there to screw with you because they can
Oh, so
steal.
you
You
can
can
try to
steal an
influence
entire station.
space?
You can steal an entire station.
Nice.
You can blow it up. You can yeah, you can do all kinds of subterfuge. It's when you build big stations though, it becomes hard to take it over. You can also have Marines defending stations.
Okay.
You can build stuff to do that, and you can also have ships. So ship build. So right. So once you get all this resources going in space, you can then build ships. Well, there are um, the game. I think they need to fix this with the game. This is one thing I actually need to fix is they need to make it so like the ships that I like design in one game are carried over another game. There's a reason that doesn't happen, but the reason that doesn't happen is probably fixable. Because there's so
Okay.
many different ship components. Like once you
Yeah,
so
so you would
like
need to, yeah.
yeah.
I
So
feel you. Yeah,
so
yeah,
when you
yeah.
build a ship, there's like at the beginning of the game you have gunships, escorts, and corvettes. That's the first set of things that unlock. So you have to
Mhm.
choose the type of drive that it has. You have to choose its engine. You have to choose its power plant that powers the engine, and you have to choose how many propellant tanks it has. So if you want it to be able to go to Mars, it needs a lot more propellant to get there, whereas it's not going to be very agile and be able to move up and down the Earth's orbit to defend it. So you have to make different decisions. There's like 20 or 30 different types of engines and like another 20 different choices of power plants to use that help you pick what you want to do with it. And obviously some are good for like little
Yeah.
fighters, some are good for hauling, people and stuff all the way across. You have utility modules, and obviously you can get bigger and bigger ships too, which require more and more propellant tanks.
Yeah,
There's different types
boosts.
of, but yeah, the boost, yeah.
More
Um,
boost. Yeah, sorry.
so like fighter ships can have utility modules like ECMs, magazines to have more missiles on board. Like you actually use up and run out of missiles, which is really more a function. This is more like Master of Orion 3 type building, like games that have like actual shipbuilding in it, and you actually have to worry about
Sure.
every little piece on the ship, which is again why it's
Yeah, yeah,
not like
yeah.
the games it's commonly described. But yeah, you have heat sinks that you can put on utility modules. You can have Marines on utility modules to go attack other stations. Um, there's like 20 or 30 different utility modules you can do. They either modify combat, it actually lets you have a deployable probe, like they're a science vessel, then they can actually, if your ship goes faster than what you naturally can just shoot from Earth, you can like go to Neptune with the ship and like deploy a settlement there or on one of the moons or whatever, with a module, which is pretty cool because then you just go to a
Okay.
station
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
nearby, recharge the module. You have radiators, so as you
Oh,
use weapons, because you have different types of guns. You have missiles, you have mass drivers, you have lasers, you have just straight ballistic stuff. There's all kinds of different choices. Well, you have to eventually dissipate heat. You have radiators for that, and of course, ship combat is ridiculously complicated because again, it happens in Newtonian physics. But
and in real time
yeah, it happens in real
combat?
time. You
Okay.
tell the you largely tell it what to do. I
Yeah.
don't I like ship combat is so complicated. I haven't really figured it out yet. But
Okay, sure.
basically
That sounds, yeah, I mean, for
they
this
start
kind of
on
game, that sounds
they
right.
start on each side. Like one of the utility modules that's really useful is point defense, which lets you shoot
Okay.
down missiles that are coming at you. Otherwise,
Oh,
missiles are
yeah.
going to absolutely obliterate you. But you run out of missiles, so eventually it comes down to guns too. You have batteries, so anything that has charged weaponry, you have to use the batteries for it. We talked about power plants. They're for your drive. Different drives do different things, and then of course you have to decide how much armor to put on the ships and whether they go on the front or the back. You know, like you can choose how you want to do that. But of course, the more armor you put on and the heavier and better it is, the harder it is to move through space. So it's always a
Oh,
balance, and
of
that's
course.
one of the
Yeah.
like a lot of 4X grand strategy games where you build ships. You run into
You
this
just build
issue.
bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, you just build the biggest thing. There's
Bigger
no
and
more
bigger and
rock
bigger.
paper
Yeah.
scissors anymore, and it just
Yep.
doesn't matter. Whereas I
Yeah.
feel in this game, they're like,
And
I
that's
don't know what
almost
it
the end
is.
game right there. You reach that point where
Yeah,
you're
just you build
winning and
everything
just
big.
keep
Yeah,
rolling and hooray, I did it.
if you can somehow
Yeah.
get far enough ahead in this game, you probably can build, the generic, some battleship Mark II or whatever, and just crank out
Galaxy
100 of them and
class.
win. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it definitely you need something that is agile to like. There's a big difference between going on offense because you're going to their point and you don't necessarily care how long it takes to get there. But if you want to be able to intercept something trying to destroy Earth or trying to bombard Earth, or to be able to intercept to the particular orbit and meet that ship, well, you got to be fast enough to actually get there before they go in, bomb it, and leave. And if you it
Yeah.
is so
Yeah.
like yeah. But that makes it kind of cool with the research tree though too, because like if I want to build this ship, and this ship, and I know once I played the game a few times, well, I want this drive, and this weapon. Screw ballistics because I don't want that weapon. Like I don't know what's best with every application. But say I don't want just
Sure.
ballistic guns, I'm going to skip them. It's
Yeah.
possible to do that. It's possible to skip the 7 versions of whatever energy drive you don't want, um, and you can basically focus your research. Like just because a project isn't complete doesn't necessarily punish you. But like for instance, if you want to get level 3 of something, you generally have to research level 2, and that's where there's actually randomization in the research. It's possible when the rival economics is researched. Well, it says you have this is a requirement for the following faction projects. Okay, so you get arrival markets, bootstrap spaceflight program. Well, you only have a 67% chance of getting that. You only have a 50% chance of getting stakeholder subversion, 40% algorithm economic management, 40% civilian photonic computing, and you get a common concern and maximum effort always. So it's possible you may not unlock some of those, and if another faction does, you can go steal the knowledge to be able to research it. Unlike Civ, where you would
Yeah.
actually steal the research outright and get it immediately. No, no, no. In this game, you can steal something you weren't offered, or that I don't know if you can steal faction exclusives to others, but you can steal it
Oh,
and then research it. Not
for
too many
yourself.
things that are faction exclusives or stuff you actually want. Like I wouldn't want to necessarily steal
Sure.
like for me for the resistance that I'm playing. One of the research projects is whenever my stuff's taken over by military, it causes a massive amount of unrest if I research it
Oh,
in what's taken over. A lot of other factions may not even want that. They're catered to your goals, and then others may not want that.
sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
the
pretty
research
much
system sounds. It
it's
sounds neat. It sounds
it,
really in
the
depth and
game has that wonderful feel. So like there's certain 4X
ooey.
and grand strategy games you play that you don't necessarily like. It takes a long time for a lot of the stuff in this game to play out. But when I play this
Yeah.
game, I feel that like that one more turn philosophy.
Yeah.
I got to play one
Oh,
more
for sure.
turn
Yeah.
because like
Yeah. Yeah.
every
Yeah.
turn you play, something clicks off that of course you get that receptive biofeedback. Like you get the endorphins. What's the
Yeah.
word
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
looking for?
Serotonin.
Yeah, not serotonin. The other
The
one.
serotonin burst, the reward, the
The other one. Yeah,
fanfare,
it's the reward thing because like
yeah,
a
the
research is
itch.
going to click off. Research is going to click off.
Yeah.
You
And
know
you're like,
making
well,
like
just one more. I better
you
choose
see
the
all
next
the
one.
bars go
Yeah.
up. Oh, that thing got finished. It's the dopamine. That's what I'm looking for,
Dopamine.
man. Yeah. But yeah, so but it's in such a fun way. I mean, eventually I just get my butt handed to me and lose. But there's so many points of the game that you get the dopamine hit without me having to play
Keeps you
PoE or
going.
something. Like PoE is
Yeah.
just there's no slot machine here. Like I think there's a strategy where you can just win, but it's really really fun to go into the game totally blind with just the knowledge of what I kind of just told you. Just understand the basics of the game and what you're trying to accomplish. The tutorial's all right. The tutorial kind of like it always wants like you to do something that probably isn't efficient, like go to a crackdown and coup
Sure.
on this nation right now. I'm like, I don't
It
want those
wants to
people
show you
pissed
how to
off
do
at me.
those things.
Yeah, like just
Yeah.
assigning it will let it tick to the next
Right.
thing, and you don't have to actually complete it. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
but there's so much depth to it. Like you could eventually figure out you can have your council people kind of set up a mission, like exposing or detaining somebody, and then trying to get information out of them, like steal organizations and stuff from them. And that becomes more successful once the first person's thing is successful. And they even designed it that, let's say that first thing you try to do to set up to make something easier, like to crack down on somebody's control point, which removes all their defenses on it, and then you want to try to take it over with a purge mission. Well, the purge mission, let's say the crackdown fails and it's just way too hard for that other guy to try to purge. You can actually go into their council thing and pull. You can have them not do the mission because it's actually possible. Your council people can get killed. Your council people can get detained, and they can also have negative impacts from badly failing missions. So the better odds you have, there's certain missions you don't want to risk because you know they could die, and then starting somebody later on in the game at level 1 effectively is a bit rough.
Sure.
But organizations are sort of your key to that. Like you don't want to be afraid in the early game to like hire and fire people because you don't want to, like, it feels like the game will take a very long time, but before you know it, you're 20, 30 hours into the game. Like this game, I think each game is taking me like 30 to 50 hours. Like I'll be playing it for a week.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and you can fast forward through a lot of it. Basically, the clock has to run, and then everyone gets to do their council people's turns, and then you're largely watching those play out. And of course, I probably take much slower than the average player, but there you go. But that's pretty much the game is absolutely awesome, and they're adding more stuff to it. It's actively patched, and I'm just honestly super impressed with it. And right now, it's basically in my top. The only game I can think of that is newer, that is a 4X grand strategy that is better than this game, and it's a different style
Ooh.
of game, is Shadow Empire. It's more complex, but like,
That's newer?
yeah, well, Shadow, like if I go back 15 years, games were made a lot different. Like there's some really great grand strategy
Oh,
games
yeah.
back in that era. It's just it like of new stuff that's come out. I'm super excited about Terra Invicta, and I wish I had more time to play it.
Cool. I mean, I can't wait to, yeah, after the holidays and everything, I'm gonna pick it up. I'm sad that I didn't pick it up during the Steam holiday sale, but
It'll go on sale again. I mean, it's still new and it's a small dev team. I think is it Hooded Horse or something is the name of the team. And they're also have shout out that they have Alliance. I think it's Alliance of the Free Stars or something. I've had that
okay.
circled for a long time, and it looked very similar to Empire of the Fading Suns in just some of the way that some of the nomenclature and stuff being thrown around with it. So I'm excited to see that game released, and I think it's from the same company. But these guys did,
Okay.
this group did a very, very good job with this game, and I think a lot of people didn't understand how to interpret. Like, I love it when a game has complexity, and the complexity, each layer plays together really well. Whereas the layers in
Yeah,
like a game like
right. Oh,
Stellaris don't
yeah.
play together very well.
Okay, yeah,
You
yeah.
build up your
The
planet, and then you have a
the
plan to build up
planet
all the
side
planets.
on Stellaris, first of all, it was such a mess that at some point while I was actively playing Stellaris, they completely it wasn't just a revamp.
They
They
repatched
completely
everything.
changed
Yeah.
how the planetary side system worked entirely at one point in an update. And
Yeah.
that was when I stopped playing because I was like, "Oh wow,
Yeah.
nothing works anymore."
Yeah, and the best part about this game, there's currently no DLC, and I would at the moment I don't think the plan is to have a ridiculous amount of DLC. Like, if you enjoy
It,
4X and Grand Strategy, like normally I'm like
it's
wait
nice
for a
to just
sale
be
or
one
whatever, but
thing.
like, have I been disappointed with the 35 or $40 this game was? No,
Yeah.
this
It
game
sounds worth it.
is ridiculously good if you can get suckered into games like this like I do. It's there's some things they're going to improve, they're going to patch. I hope they make the army control a little bit more intuitive. Like I understand what's going on, and like I've certainly played stuff that's just far worse and dealt with it, and you don't really have a stupid number of armies, but you do have to
Yeah.
unless all the armies are on the same tile, which can bear some problems. I won't spoil them, but like watch out for things that blow up. You could basically blow up a tile, and like losing all
Oh.
your armies at once would be bad. But it just makes it easier to move them all together as well. There's ways to control making sure that's not a thing. But yeah, generally I just control them all individually, and you can't like say go from France to Russia. You have to go one space at a time, or if they have a navy, they can land.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but the
Okay.
game does every time something completes its move, the game stops you and asks you what you want to do next with them. So you can always it says zoom me to where this is and pause the game. You can
That
always do
sounds
that.
nice.
Yes, and there's
That
indicators everywhere
sounds
on the
real
screen.
nice.
Like the whole left
That's
side
cool.
bar is just everything that is happening as it happens, and at the
The
top
GUI is incredibly important.
there
And the
is
HUD.
yes, everything
Yeah.
is basically one click away, and that's a really really good design because a lot of
Yeah.
games like this, like Shadow
Important.
Empire does. I wouldn't say it fails at this. Shadow Empire has too much going on for it all to be on the same screen, but everything you need is on that screen. But like in this game, you can basically click on a whole lot of stuff on the screen and it'll take you right to that thing. Like all your council people, all the space habitats, all the armies, and anything that is a completed something that pops up, you click on it, it'll take you right there. So altogether, on a
I
scale
like
of
that. I
like
like that.
on a scale of negative I to E, this game gets a E minus 0.01.
Are those imaginary numbers
That's
that
exactly right. The scale is imaginary
okay.
and is completely in your head.
Well, most scales are.
But I hope you have a chance to check it out. You can always wait for
I'm
a
gonna
sale.
yeah.
But I think the sales lately have only been like 10% off. So if you're like dying to play this for anyone out there, just go get
I
it.
mean, I mean, if the next time that I have disposable income, which is, every now and then, I'm probably just gonna get it, whether or not it's. But if it is on sale, that
Well, yeah, I just like to tell people
they'll
like,
email
because
me. Yeah,
like Steam will do a thing where it's like they'll put it
exactly.
on sale a little bit, like EA stuff will do this.
Oh,
They'll put it on sale
oh,
for a little
sure.
bit, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
like the
yeah,
holiday
yeah.
sale comes and it's 50% off. This game is too new from a small company. It's not going to go on 50% off like that.
Right.
Maybe in a couple years they'll have or a year or so they'll have a big sale. Like maybe there's a big. They're about to patch the game like super big with a whole bunch of changes. Like research right now is a little bit. I wouldn't say it's too powerful, but like you can build stuff in space
It
that
sounds like
obviously
that's
gives
a.
you research
It
is a
sounds
big
like
part
the
of the game
research is a huge. It sounds
because
like that's most of the game. At least
at,
that's most of what you wanted
at the
to talk
beginning of the
about.
game, if the aliens were on Earth, they would have such a distinct advantage that you just lose. There are certain
Yeah,
things
so
you
you got to
have
do
to
the prep.
research, and there's clocks in the game. Like that's another thing about certain games is like the clock may not be necessarily like you're warned about certain things in this game, and you know roughly like if you're paying attention a little bit, or at least you lose once. It's not like a roguelike where a bad roguelike like NetHack, where you have to lose 40 different ways before you understand what's going on. You will
Okay,
have
yeah.
things happen in this game. Like you'll enjoy playing it again because I could be so much more efficient with my early counts of people's turns, and now I have some like this. You will gain so much in strategy having
Yeah.
played the game
Yeah,
once
yeah,
or
yeah.
twice that it's going to be extremely enjoyable to replay it and kind of cornering the market in the ways that you enjoy doing so. So
Yep.
like it doesn't feel like pain. Like I've had to restart and I'm not pissed at all. I don't feel I was hard done or screwed in any way. It's just that I wasted too much time and I needed to do something more efficiently. And now I understand. Like there's if the one thing to recommend is the Hooded Horse wiki. There's a wiki for this game. Like a whole bunch of stuff is available in the game help, and a lot of that's regurgitated on the wiki. But it's all there. Like if you want to know the GDP equations, if you want to know how welfare works, and it doesn't tell you how to win. I'm sure there's a link on there that does, but it's like XCOM. Like you want to know how the gun actually works and what its accuracy rating is when you're going to go to
Yeah.
research it, like stuff like that. That's all freely available. Like like some of the stuff is sometimes hard to fish down in the game. Like there's actually an online GitHub that lets you look up all the massive research tree in the game, and you can it's I actually keep that open while I'm playing because there's certain research projects that are hard to kind of find on the grid, and once you play the game a few
Oh,
times, it's like I know I want this,
sure.
this, and this, so you can
You gotta
actually click it
search.
on
You
the
gotta,
online
yeah.
thing and it's way faster just because the game. I love to play the game on a massive solar system, and it does change the game a bit if you have a weaker computer, you might have to play it on a less space objects. You only need so many for
Yeah.
the game to work, but I think you need to play on the largest or the second largest to really have the aliens do what they're supposed to do. Otherwise, they kind of
Okay.
like they're going to take over stuff. So
Like
if there's less stuff for
like
them to
less
take over,
asteroids and
yeah,
stuff?
exactly. A lot of them
Okay.
you're probably like you're never going to. I don't think in a real game you're going to take over all 400 objects, but you want the aliens to be able to pick and choose really annoying
Yeah.
places to deal with, as opposed to kind of funneling stuff in. Like Alien Legacy is you kind of move your way out, and it's like there's one planet. Each planet's a little bit harder than the last, but there's a lot more width. But don't let it like you probably play on the second highest setting and get probably about the same experience with this. Just
Okay.
if the game lags for you, like people were complaining about crashes and stuff. I've experienced the only time I've experienced a crash with this game was when I leave the game open way too long, and I tried to resume
Oh,
immediately after keeping the game open for like 24 hours because I'm an idiot.
okay. Yeah.
I never
I
had the
don't
game
intend
like
to do
crash while I
that.
was playing. I just save when
Yeah.
I go to start and like I'll crash,
That's smart.
but I've never actually like people were complaining that the game's unstable and has issues. Like I've encountered none of this. So the game's beautiful. I love it, and that's pretty much
Great.
all I got.
A golden review.
That is, yeah, you get a gold star, Terra Invicta, and feel free to check it out. I think it's a great game. That is Iggy Talks Too Much, episode 4. Iggy talks too much about Terra Invicta and games at large. And we had with us today Koya DK, famous for koyadk.tv, CUYADK.tv. Anything else you want to leave us with?
Oh, it's awesome to be here. Thank you so much. And I think I've said it all. This sounds like a lot of big numbers for me to chew on, and I can't wait to try it out.
It's such a great game. Take it easy, y'all, and have a happy December ween. And
Oh yeah.
Ant, you finally got what you wanted. The game review pod has started.
Game review number 1.
And thanks again, everybody, and tune in
Star
next
Ocean
time.
sometime. Sorry.
Star Ocean, the last hope. Oh man, that review. I have notes. We're gonna talk about games I don't like that I still play. Well, thanks
Great.
again, everybody, and have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you, Iggy.